everyone? I'm in the studio with Omar and Earl. We're talking some Milwaukee Bucks. We're talking some Doc Rivers. He has stepped down, departed, vacated the spot, however you want to say it. He is no longer the Milwaukee Bucks head coach. The Bucks owners said, quote, "It has been an honor to have Doc as our coach and as a leader in our organization and community. In addition to his impact on the court, we're thankful for Doc's class and professionalism during his tenure with Milwaukee." So as Milwaukee enters their third head coaching search,
Griffin heard the same line.
as Milwaukee enters their third head coaching search in the last 3 years, they're now also discussing potentially Doc moving into an advisory role with the team. So, Earl, I'm going to start it off with you. What are your thoughts?
What?
We know what Omar thinks. What is your thoughts on Doc potentially moving up to an advisory role after vacating the head coaching spot?
First of all, you notice how when they made that exit interview thing, they never mentioned winning. Doc didn't win anything for the Bucks. Like, I feel like that was the most useless hiring I've ever seen in the last 15 years of basketball, except for Darvin Ham. And you know what's funny? Wow, whoop-de-doo, they were both on the same team. What does that tell you, bro? A match made in heaven. And if the Bucks know any better, they'll get him off the team before he infects everybody else too. But shout out to the in-season tournament though. That's all that matters. You know, everybody loves that tournament.
Oh my god!
But all jokes aside, man, I think this makes sense. I mean, the Bucks really weren't going anywhere, even when they had healthy rosters. I feel like Doc just didn't know how to optimize the rosters around Giannis. And even when they had Dame, he just couldn't figure out a way to make both of them work together. And I know part of that is obviously chemistry and stuff like that, but the other part of it is coaching, putting guys in the right spots. Filling out the rosters, not playing Taurean Prince 45 minutes a game, as something I've experienced as a Lakers fan as well. In some of those stretches, it makes absolutely no sense. And it's about optimizing your roster. I feel like Doc Rivers, he just didn't do that. And I'm not saying he wasn't a great coach in the past. Obviously, his history with the Celtics, he had success there. Clippers as well. I know they didn't win, but they had some really competitive seasons. I just don't think that his tenure on the Bucks was memorable at all. Like, when we look at the grand scheme of things, when we look back in the history books of the Bucks, nobody is probably going to remember that he was a head coach. Well, I will say nobody will remember it in a good reason. But he's not. He just, to me, I think this makes sense. And I don't understand why he would be in a front office role or whatever. I don't expect him to be like a Brad Stevens situation. I don't think he's like a great basketball mind when it comes to breaking down trades and sitting down and bringing people in. I don't know if he's 100% that people person type of guy. And honestly, I think, sadly for us NBA fans, we're going to hear him back on the broadcast, and we're going to have to hear Doc Rivers for 45 minutes on live TV, breaking down games. Might have to turn my TV down a little bit, no disrespect. But yeah, I think it made sense, bro. He's the first person to leave off of a really busy Bucks offseason we're going to see because Giannis is next.
Y'all could see I muted myself because I gotta give my co-host the respect of a quiet and subtle take, because at the end of the day, Earl's take is 100% valid, and we gotta swing it where it is due respect. But y'all saw my reaction. I was saying, what are we doing here? What is going on here? Did we not just watch the last season? Did we not? And by the way, I think it's really funny how they're considering an advisory role to somebody that just told his team, Google me. Do we remember that? Do we remember that, boys? Remember what just happened, right? That was an exit meeting for them. Like, are we kidding me? Did we not listen to JJ Redick on First Take? Did we not listen to him when he said, Doc Rivers is not a good NBA coach? He has been saying this for years. Please, somebody correct me in the comment section. There was one time where Doc Rivers took credit for a team that he wasn't even part of anymore. Like, the Clippers got somebody traded to them, but he wanted credit for it for some reason, and I don't even know what's going on there. But Doc Rivers has been somebody that I see as a fucking delusional moron. Because I don't understand how you can have the roster that you have, and you have, first of all, we're not even talking about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin anymore. Those boys are that way, right? We already passed your championship tenure. Now we're talking about arguably one of the better players of all time on your team, with Damian Lillard. and you somehow got convinced by the front office to cut him and split his contract. But now he's in an advisory role. I think Milwaukee fans are upset. I went to Milwaukee. You guys know this. I went to Milwaukee. I watched the Bucks game. Talked to a great guy, by the way, right next to me. We had a great conversation about them. I had Knicks jersey on. He knew what I was about. I had the Giannis jersey in my bag, but
Sorry.
I guarantee you that man is upset right now because I could genuinely tell you he was already pissed off about Doc Rivers. Enough. Without getting into detail. I was already pissed off about Doc Rivers. Now he's in an advisory role. Ah! Somebody help me, please.
Listen, it's a bad situation all around, and I will come on here and say I do think Doc has gotten a little too much hate for the team. Ultimately, it wasn't. I don't think it was his decision to waive and stretch Dame. I think he gets a lot of the blame for poor front office decisions, the mismanagement of the roster, poor construction around Giannis, the way they handled the end of the Dame era, and bringing in Miles Turner this offseason. I doubt Doc had a lot to do with that. I'm sure they informed him about it ahead of time, but I don't think those are his decisions. And ultimately, this Bucks team, like it or not, they did face a ton of health problems. I mean, Damian Lillard and Giannis, in their 2 years together, were never healthy for the playoffs. I don't think those two ever played a healthy playoff game together. And this year, again, Giannis has been maybe more injured throughout the course of a regular season than he's been in his entire career. So I do think Doc was the victim of bad luck in that sense and bad front office management on another sense. But there are very valid criticisms of Doc, which is why I'm not disagreeing with this decision to part ways with him. What Earl said about roster management and roster maximization, that's a very real thing. I think there's been other veteran coaches across the league in the history of the NBA and in recent years that have done a better job of, when their team faces health problems, when their team faces injuries, keeping them afloat. Think of Steve Kerr this year. He's kept Golden State relatively afloat, even without Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. I think Steve Kerr has maximized that roster, and I think that roster is worse than the team without Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. I think that Warriors team is worse than the Bucks without Giannis. Doc Rivers, as a veteran coach, should have been expected to get this team a little more competitive on a night-to-night basis than they were. And even when they had Giannis and Dame, I don't think we ever saw them as the top-tier Eastern Conference Finals / NBA Finals contender that they could have been. So absolutely opportunity not maximized there. And there's also been reports of Doc losing the locker room, making these comments, having a coaching philosophy.
Losing it?
That loses the locker room. And again, as a veteran head coach, that stuff's, it's never excusable, but you can understand it a little bit more from a first-time or younger head coach. When you are a veteran head coach, a championship-winning head coach, to lose the locker room like that, especially when you have one of, as Omar said, the best players in NBA history in Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, in your locker room, that's a big indictment against Doc Rivers. And that's part of where I'm like, I think this was the right decision. You can't have a coach who's not maximizing the roster and is also not a positive presence behind the closed doors, according to reports. We never know, but that's from what we've heard. Players were not a big fan of him. Giannis was not a big fan of him. I think it's time to move on. How does this play into the Giannis domino effect? We'll see this summer. I doubt Giannis sticks around in Milwaukee, so assuming that is the case, I think this is a good opportunity to just kind of wipe the slate clean, start with a new head coach. It's going to be a rough couple of years for the Bucks, assuming Giannis does leave in the near future. I think the first step of that, they got to bring in a young head coach, hopefully who doesn't lose the locker room, a little different philosophy, shoot for some potential there. So in terms of Doc in an advisory role, I don't see the merit in it. Maybe they know him better than I do, so maybe there is value. Maybe this is where Doc can go and have a career revitalization in the front office. If he can help lead Milwaukee through this time and get them out on the other side of the Giannis era in a decent spot, then fair enough. But for the time being, I don't, that's all speculative, and we'll have to see if he even gets that advisory role. Right now, it's just under consideration. So you guys let us know in the comment section whether you think it would be a good idea for Doc to step in.
I will say something before we end.
Oh, yeah, what you got, Omar? What you got?
So the exact quote, so everybody knows on how this is what Doc Rivers said. What did Doc Rivers say? Look at my resume. Quote, Google me. I took teams to the playoffs and the championship that weren't supposed to be there. I thought this was one of them. Now, according to Doc Rivers, it wasn't received well or anything like that, and everybody lost their shit on him, basically. So if you're in defense of any Doc Rivers Just know that's the way that he treats his players, and that's probably the way that he treated the Clippers too.
I don't even think
Well,
it's like a
he-
crazy quote. Okay, I'll say this before you. I think it's one of those things where it's like one of those things where you challenge your players in the locker room, like, hey, I thought we were supposed to be here. Like everybody's mindset, obviously, when we go into the season, is to be a championship caliber team. I think it's one of those things like attempt to be one of those coaches that you see in the movies, like I've done this with these groups of people. I thought you were one of these groups too. I think that's where he was coming
I
from.
mean,
That's what it sounds
but
like.
then
To me.
we're also talking about Hall of Famers when he says teams that aren't supposed to be there. He's talking about Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. He's talking about the players that he's taken to the playoffs. He's talking about Chris Paul. He's talking
Yeah, I
about
mean,
Blake
in
Griffin.
some of those cases, there were
Those
situations
teams
where
should have
teams
been
weren't.
in the playoffs, arguably should have won the championship. So
I
I'm
mean,
not
not
sure what
every
he's
team who
talking
wins
about
the
when he says
championship
that.
should have been there, though, or was expected to be there. Think
I mean,
about
for the
the
Celtics,
Ben
it might have
Wallace
been.
Pistons. Not
Sure,
everybody
yeah.
thought they were going to be there.
You're right,
Well,
100%.
Doc,
But
Doc thought that the Bucks were going to be one of these teams. They were not one of
Yeah.
those teams, ultimately.
Facts.
So let us know
Yeah.
in the comment section below your take on all this. Is Doc catching too much of the blame, or is this a completely justified move, or somewhere in the middle of that? As always, we read the comments. We love interacting with you guys. So let us know. And please do keep an eye out for our content here on the BTB Show as we roll into the NBA postseason. We're going to have a ton of good stuff cranked out for you guys. Analysis, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So please follow along with the journey. I'm Max, Omar, and Earl over there. We are signing off. Enjoy the playoffs, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and adios.
Deuce.